Hey everyone, it's me, Miss Crichton. Today is day 2 of our unit on America's origins. Our FQ today is How was settler colonialism part of America's origin story? For the do now, I want you to think back to what you learned in Global last year about imperialism. How would you define imperialism in your own words? If you don't remember learning about imperialism last year, that's okay. You can Google a definition. Pause and answer the do now as the first question in the Schoology quiz. I defined imperialism as when a powerful country tries to take control over other countries using violence or the threat of violence. This is what Christopher Columbus had in mind when he first met the Taínos. And soon after Columbus, there were a whole bunch of European explorers claiming different chunks of America under the doctrine of discovery, which basically means it's mine because I saw it first. Of course, the doctrine of discovery assumes that it only matters when a white European discovers the land, regardless of the fact that there are already millions of indigenous people living there. There's a really cool app and website called Native Land where you can enter your zip code and it will tell you whose ancestral indigenous land you're standing on. For those of us in Brooklyn, we're standing on the land of the Canarsie Lenape, who were here for thousands of years before the Dutch and then the British arrived in New York. So we started out reviewing imperialism, but today we're introducing a new word called colonialism, which is closely connected to imperialism. Colonialism is a system where one group of people uses violence to take land, resources, or labor from another group of people. Imperialism and colonialism are so similar and connected that you can basically think of them as the same thing. The slight difference between them is that imperialism leads to colonialism. So Britain engaged in imperialism to take over a bunch of colonies and then set up the system of colonialism to exploit or use those colonies and benefit themselves. In the system of colonialism, the colony is the land and people that are being exploited or taken advantage of. The colonizers are the people using violence to take land, resources, or labor for themselves. Colonialism comes in 2 flavors, depending on what the colonizer is trying to take from the colony. Exploitation colonialism is when a small number of colonizers use a colony for its resources and indigenous labor, which is what the British did in India. They wanted the Indian people to work for really low pay to grow crops and mine resources that would be exported back to Britain. Exploitation colonialism is also what Christopher Columbus was doing when he forced the Taínos to mine gold at gunpoint so he could take it back to Spain. In the United States, we have something called settler colonialism, which is when a large number of colonizers wants to take over the colony's land and replace the indigenous population. This is what we saw happening with the Texas Rangers in Texas. White immigrants were using violence to try to push out and even exterminate the indigenous and Mexican people who were already living there. Settler colonialism basically means that the colonizer is trying to commit genocide against the indigenous people who were already living on the land. Genocide is the murder and destruction of an entire group of people and their culture. Settler colonialism also involves white supremacy, which is the racist belief that white people are better than people of color. Basically, racism was invented by white people to justify stealing land, resources, and labor from people of color. Later in this unit, we'll learn more about how white supremacy, racism, and even the idea of race itself was invented to justify slavery and colonialism. There's a lot of new vocabulary in this lesson, so I think this is a good place to really pay attention to word endings because they can tell you a lot. We have a lot of words in social studies that end with ism, which is always a system or an idea, like racism, colonialism, imperialism, sexism, communism. If you change the ending to ist, it means a person who believes in that idea, a racist, a colonist, a communist. The word ending "ize" means it's a verb or action. So colonize means to make a colony. Summarize means to make a summary. Analyze means to make analysis. The word endings er and or mean a person doing that action. Like a teacher teaches, an advisor advises, an actor acts, a server serves, and a colonizer colonizes. That's it for today's mini lesson. Make sure you do the independent assignment in today's folder. Tomorrow, I will post a lesson for you to do independently, but there will be no conferences tomorrow since all of your teachers will be in meetings. We can talk a little bit about the election on Wednesday, even though we probably won't know the results yet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.